Broadcasting to the universe from the heart of the Music City.
This is Big Podcast.
When I walked into my studio today, I'm using the same clipboard for episode notes since 2005. If you want to see photos of it, bigpodcast.com. I've got photos of it. I looked on it and I'm thinking, damn, I've got a ton of episode prep because every episode that I do, I've got pages and pages of notes and they stack up with each episode. So anyway, time to head to the recycling bin after this one. I'm talking about episode prep on this episode. It's Build a Big Podcast, the podcast about podcasting, specifically marketing your podcast. If you want to bring more people to your podcast, get more people to care about your message, you see where this is going. It's about building an audience, strengthening your message, making money with that message, making more impact with that message. I'm David Hooper. BigPodcast.com is the website. This episode, the audio edition of my weekly newsletter, that is at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. That's where to find more information, all the links to everything that I'm talking about. Here's what I'm covering on this episode. Woo! Phil Donahue, Oprah, and you. Woo! Own your niche. Woo! Larry King never prepared for interviews. True or not, we're going to talk about it. Woo! Apple Podcast, Web Edition. Woo! Create an online radio station for $99. Woo! The Gang Run. The top 50 podcasts in the United States right now. Woo! Also some classified ads, things that will help you to grow your podcast, get more attention to your podcast, a bigger audience for your podcast, to make more money with your podcast, the things that this podcast is about. This episode of Build a Big Podcast brought to you by Riverside.fm, a virtual studio that makes recording and editing at the highest quality possible, accessible to anyone. I was talking to a guy today about technology and how far we have come with technology. And one of the things that I'm very thankful for is how easy it is for people to get a podcast out. I love that. I think the fewer things that we have in between you and your message getting out to people, the better it is. Riverside.fm is one of those things. Not only can you record yourself, not only can you record your guest, you can also edit audio and video as easy as editing text. Editing audio is an art. Using a DAW, digital audio workstation, that's what that stands for, that is an art. You can learn how to do it. It's not impossible. But if you really want to get in the game, spread a message, develop your hosting skills, record a message, get that message out to people. Riverside.fm is one of the quickest ways to do it. Studio quality recordings, I mentioned video, up to 4K from your home computer. It's an easy way to record yourself, record guests. You're going to sound like you're in the next room. I want you to check it out. Riverside.fm is how to do that. They're going to give you a couple hours for free. Get in there, look around, do an interview, maybe two. See how you like it. If you want to stick around, here's a discount code for you. It's Big Podcast, BIGPODCAST. That's going to get you 15% off. The URL, riverside.fm. The discount code to get you 15% off. Big Podcast, BIGPODCAST. All right, let's do it. I'm going from thing to thing to thing. In between those things, you're going to hear this sound. Everything I talk about is about podcasting. That's the way you know that I've gone to the next thing. This is issue number 195. If you want the links, if you want more information, if you want the photos, the images that I'm discussing, you can find all those things at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Again, this is issue number 195. Let's go. Phil Donahue, Oprah, and you. Phil Donahue just died, and Oprah Winfrey wrote this about him. She said, if there had been no Phil Donahue show, there would be no Oprah Winfrey show. If you're not familiar with Phil Donahue, and guys my age, Gen X, we grew up with Phil Donahue. Stay home from school, Price is Right, Phil Donahue. That was it, man. So we knew all about Phil Donahue. And one of the things that Phil Donahue was known for, and I want to take you back to the 70s, the 80s, he would talk about things that nowadays they don't seem too controversial, but at the time, they were considered taboo. Oh, we can't talk about that on television. And it wasn't sensational. It would be about something like mental health or prostate exams, things that are important. We don't think much about them today, but people used to think, we can't possibly talk about that. He brought them out into the open. He pretty much invented the daytime talk show format, at least as we know it today. The panel of guests, somebody going around in the audience. It was Phil, then it was Oprah, then Sally Jesse Raphael, Jenny Jones. Somebody with a mic asking the audience, well, what do you think about this? What question do you have for this guy? What question do you have for this lady? He brought the audience into the conversation, and made them just as part of the show as he was. I've got a great David Letterman clip. David Letterman is interviewing Phil Donahue, and that's going to give you a better idea of the impact of Phil Donahue and also who he was as a person, how he built the show, how he became Phil Donahue, the man that everybody's been talking about for the last week. I bring all this up to say that your work as a podcaster, it can be equally impactful. You, me, other podcasters, we are moving the ball down the field. We are taking the talk format and innovating on it. We're bringing our listeners into the conversation. And if you take away one thing from this episode, I'm going to talk about a lot of important things. It's bring your listeners into the conversation. That's how to have impact, bringing those things that they are thinking about out into the open, letting other people hear them, letting other people think about them, discussing them themselves. If you want more thoughts on this, that conversation with Phil Donahue and David Letterman, I've got it linked, newsletter.bigpodcast.com, issue number 195. I want to talk about Big Podcast AMP for a second. If you like the newsletter, you like the audio edition of it, you're going to love Big Podcast AMP, the audio monetization program. This is for podcasters. It's a personal coaching program that's going to help you do three things. It's going to help you grow your podcast audience, get people talking about your podcast, and make more money with your podcast, and also your podcasting skills. If you're good on the mic, if you're good at audio editing, there's an opportunity for you. I'm going to help you take advantage of all those opportunities, or at least the ones that you want. You don't have to do all of them, but you may want to do some of them. Let's talk about that. bigpodcast.com/amp. That's where it is. It's Big Podcast AMP, the audio monetization program. You can find more information at bigpodcast.com/amp. Own your niche. This is a very cool opportunity to get maybe a little bit of press, maybe just something cool to talk about with your audience. I heard about this from Grammar Girl. I've done an interview with her. If you haven't heard it, it's at podcast.bigpodcast.com. Grammar Girl, she's a word person. We're all word people, but she's really a word person. There's a site called Wordnik, and you can adopt any word. She adopted podcast. She beat me to it. So I adopted podcasting. It's $25 for the year. If nothing else, it's a cheap link back to your site. But again, also something to talk to your audience about. Put out a press release about it. Seriously. I could do something like Big Podcast owns podcasting. People think, what? Yeah, wordnik.com. $25. I've seen other podcasters do this. Brad Shreve from a podcast called Queer We Are, he adopted the word queer. Zeta Christian, the oldest first-time podcaster that I know. She was 69 years old when she started podcasting. She's in her 70s now. She's got a podcast called Ritual Recipes. She adopted ritual. So note that any word will work. It doesn't matter what you podcast about. A word related to the topic of your podcast is available on Wordnik. And again, an opportunity for you to email your audience, have a discussion, just something fun. And it's a link back to your site. You want more SEO, Google search results, authority on the internet? This is going to help you. I've got more information about it. It's newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 195. By the way, if you do this, do let me know about it. You can reach out to me via Mastodon, Blue Sky, or Threads. Larry King never prepared for interviews? That's a question. And that's what I said because somebody sent me this via Mastodon and it blew my mind. He said, Larry King never prepared for interviews. I said, what? So I looked it up and I found this out. Larry King believed that not preparing for interviews allowed for more authentic interactions. Now, that's what he said. There are a lot of podcasters that believe not editing is more authentic and keeping it real. Yeah, maybe. But sometimes people don't want real. For example, if you're using any kind of compression on your voice, does it really sound like you when people hear that compressed voice? I don't know, but it's effective. You can understand it in cars. Photography, it's photoshopped. You're wearing makeup. Is that keeping it real? No. Instagram filters, is that keeping it real? I don't know why people have this thing about podcasting and we've got to keep it real. I'm not saying be fake. I'm saying to be effective. And preparing for an interview, that's going to help you do those things. But we can't argue with success. Larry King was a very successful broadcaster. He had the ability to connect with his guests in a way that made him a household name and a very long career. I would also argue that when he says, I don't prepare for interviews, that doesn't mean that he doesn't prepare. It just means that he didn't prepare in the traditional sense. There's a guitar player you might have heard of, Yngwie Malmsteen. You could arguably call him a guitar virtuoso. And I heard Yngwie in an interview one time. He said, I'm going to unleash the fury. Just kidding. That was a little inside. Yngwie was talking about practicing, and he said, no, I don't practice. But in the same interview, he said, oh yeah, I've got 800 guitars in my house. I've got several guitars in every room. Any room I go into, I can sit down and I can play. Well, what do you think that is? That's practicing. Now, maybe it's not practicing in a traditional sense. I went to music school. We had these practice rooms, little 5x5 rooms. You sit there with the metronome, sheet music, and you would practice, scales, 4 or 5 measures of music, whatever. Maybe he's not doing that, but hands on the guitar, you getting behind the mic, you being out and living, that could be practice, that could be preparation that helps you to do your interview. If you've done something where you've acquired specialized knowledge about a topic, that is preparation. If you've developed soft skills that allow you to quickly establish rapport with a guest, that is preparation. Now, it's non-traditional preparation. Does that allow you to skip traditional preparation, skip the pre-interview calls? I don't recommend that. Here's another thing for you to think about this when you hear something like, Larry King never prepared for interviews. Do not fall into this trap. There is a tendency for us to look at successful people and want to emulate the way that they do things. And it is very easy for us to focus on one thing when we do this. For example, let's look at great radio hosts. Rush Limbaugh used an RE20. I'm using an RE20, by the way. Not because Limbaugh used it. But you couldn't look at me or you couldn't look at Limbaugh and saying the reason we can do what we do is because of the RE20. You cannot look at Howard Stern and say the reason he can do what he does is because he broadcast out of New York. That's one thing. That's part of it. Yeah, being in New York allows you to get guests easily. Yes, an RE20 is a great mic. It's got something called variable D. There's no proximity effect, at least not in the traditional sense. Does that help? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think that's why Rush Limbaugh was great. I've got some old air checks from Limbaugh. Let me play this, actually.
KQV, Pittsburgh.
Ooga chaka, ooga ooga.
14K. 903 and 14K on the award-winning Jeff Christie Rock and Roll Radio Show. With fun and frolic for all. Some of you, no doubt, still wondering what award I have won. I'll tell you. None other than the Marconi Award for Excellence in Broadcasting.
Listen to that, man. He was doing that stuff way before he was even going by the name Rush Limbaugh. Jeff Christie. Jeff Christie playing pop music. Here's the Trident pick of the week. He was trying things. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. He got fired a lot, by the way. And actually went to work for the Kansas City Royals as a statistician, completely dropping radio before eventually coming back into radio and doing what we all know him for. By the way, I'm not a Rush Limbaugh fan. I respect the talent. I respect the tenacity. For somebody to completely lose his hearing or very close to it, he couldn't even hear a telephone ring and still do radio. That's pretty amazing. So I respect that. And that's my point. It's that we can take these little bitty things and say, okay, we can emulate this, or there's more to the story than what we're seeing. We don't have to like everything about somebody or completely copy them to learn from them. But that one thing, we shouldn't necessarily write them off. And we shouldn't say that that one thing has allowed them to do what they're doing. So look at successful people, learn from them. Do not get caught up in any single element. Stephen King writes with pencil, therefore I need to write with a pencil. No. It's everything that these people are doing which leads to their success, and everything that you are doing that leads to yours. You want more thoughts about this? I've got them. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com, issue number 195. Apple Podcasts. Web edition. This is exciting. If you've got a lot of listeners using Android or other non-Apple devices, this is great news for you. Apple Podcast is on the web. It allows listeners to enjoy the full Apple Podcast experience on any browser, any device. You want reviews? You want people to subscribe? Make your podcast go up those Apple Podcast charts? It can be done. You'll hear podcasters say, find my podcast wherever good podcasts are sold. Joking around. Don't do that. Tell people where to go. And if you have people that listen to podcasts on the web, certainly send people to your website. Get a mailing address from them, control the interaction, podcast.bigpodcast.com if you want to see how I do that. But if you want to send people to Apple Podcasts, that's an option now. Available on the web. You can find more information, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 195. Create an online radio station for $99. This is a one-time payment, $99. You are set for life. I want to go back to what I said about technology earlier. How amazing is this? $99, man. For life. Online radio is not new. When I was first doing audio online radio was how we did it. We streamed things. Online streaming radio is still around. You can create a station for $99. This is how it works. It's called Radiolize. It's an all-in-one tool that lets you create, broadcast, and manage an online radio station over the cloud. You don't have to host anything yourself. It's a great opportunity for some podcasters. For example, if you talk about music, you could program a music station and drive traffic from that station to your podcast. This is how radio drives traffic to ads. People don't go to radio for the ads. Now, you wouldn't know it, the amount of ads that radio has. But people are there for the music, and they stay for the ads. You could do something similar to your podcast. The ads drive people to your podcast. Oh, you like this song by Billy Joel? We've got an interview with Billy Joel here at the Billy Joel Podcast. Or you could schedule your podcast to stream on the station, work it like a radio show. 9 p.m. every Thursday, the Billy Joel Podcast, we're live. You can call in, whatever. Run it however you want to. If you're into radio, if you're into live interaction, this is a great way to do it. You could use this tool with just about any topic that you cover. If you've got a comedy podcast, for example, it'd be very easy to set up a station with stand-up performances similar to what XM Radio does, or Sirius XM, they call it now. If you're in the fitness niche, you could program a station with music to exercise to. My exercise of choice is jumping rope. And something that I've seen on YouTube a lot, and Instagram and any streaming platform, and I'm sure this happens not just with jumping rope, but any type of exercise. You'll see people go out into their backyards or go to the gym and live stream a jump rope workout. They are the instructors. They're doing their workout, they live stream it. You could do something similar. If you're in the fitness niche, not only could you talk about fitness on your podcast, you could actually do live workouts via Radiolize. It's very, very cool. Lots of options. If you want to brainstorm ideas with me on how to use it for your podcast, hit me up via Mastodon, Blue Sky, or Threads. You can find the link to Radiolize and also more thoughts on this. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com, issue number 195. The gang run. The printing business is where this comes from. Gang run describes a printing method where you've got multiple projects on a big sheet of paper, and that paper is then cut. For example, you've got a business card, I've got a business card, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John have business cards. The printing company and the printing presses, they're not working with little tiny sheets of paper. They're working with a huge sheet of paper that has your card, my card, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, maybe 50 other cards on it. They print all our cards on a sheet of paper, cut them up, and segment them afterwards. We do similar things in podcasting, radio, and television. If you've got a studio booked and you've got your people there, makeup, engineer, producer, you're there, maybe guests that you want to interview multiple times, it is very common for podcasters to record multiple episodes. Some thoughts on this. Even a couple of episodes can be a long day. And I've seen people at live events, maybe a trade show, where you can't go back the next day, you can't schedule it for the next week. I've seen guys knock out a dozen or more episodes at a time. And I'm talking about real episodes, half an hour, hour episodes. Show up at 9 a.m., end at 9 p.m., that kind of thing. Me personally, maybe I've got 3 in me because I do have episode prep. I do want to show up engaged. If you've ever been through this, something like a press junket, now those are tough because you might have, if they give you 5-10 minutes, you might have 5 or 6 of these things an hour, and you could do an 8, 10, 12-hour day of those. So you could do 60 in a day. Is that crazy? Well, maybe for a day it's exciting, but it's very tough to have that level of energy, the beginning, the middle, and the end of the day. Usually somebody's slow to wake up, pretty good in the middle of the day, slow at the end of the day, or slow to wake up, and then they get energized later in the day. You know how this is. You don't have energy throughout the day and it's not steady, but it's tough. Anyway, I've got a joke about this. I like these visual jokes. They're at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. I wanted to throw this out there, though, to say that if you're on a budget, if you're doing production for somebody, don't think that you have to do things individually, one episode at a time. You can do 2 or 3 at a time, save your cost, gang run them with other people. You want to split the cost of a studio, book out the day, do a lockout. You're in there half the day, your buddy's in there half the day. You're in there for an hour, your buddy's in there for an hour, whatever. There are different ways to do it. Again, I've got thoughts, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 195. the top 50 podcasts in the United States right now. What are top podcasters talking about? I've got a list. It's at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is what I found interesting. There are lots of news shows from traditional media outlets, lots of conservative talk, and those are from maybe independent outlets, but still fairly established outlets. Lots of entertainment. Most of this entertainment is by celebrity hosts, or there are people that are, reality stars, kind of pseudo-celebrities. I don't want to, look, I'm not making a judgment here. I'm just saying they're not A-listers, but they're maybe pseudo-celebrities or becoming celebrities in their own right, talking about celebrities. Just something to be aware of, but also some advice for you if you're thinking about chasing the charts, going for these top 50 slots. Don't chase the charts. That's my advice. Unless you're really into it. You like these topics. You like traditional news. You like conservative talk. You like entertainment. You like celebrity. In that case, go for it, man. Do it. But if you don't, you're just playing in traffic because a lot of people are into this stuff and you think, oh man, I could easily make money at this. You're going to be miserable, dude. You're going to be miserable. Do something that excites you. Podcasting is a bitch. I love it. I do. But when I walk in this room and I've got all this prep and I've got to record myself and I've got to keep my energy high and then I've got to edit and then I've got to publish and I've got to deal with publicists and I've got to deal with feedback. You have to do the same thing. And over the long haul, you're going to want to do something you believe in. You want to feel a part of something. Don't just follow the money. Don't just follow the charts. Speaking of celebrities, I know a lot of them, or I've worked with them, because I've worked in various elements of the entertainment industry for all of my career, mostly music. You think that celebrity will make you happy, or a lot of people do. But one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of people are trapped by it. People expect things from them. They can't go to the store. They can't have a normal life. Imagine being Taylor Swift. Is it great to be on stage in front of 80,000 people? Yes. Is it great to have people love what you do? Yes. But you've also got the other side. Like right now, it's conspiracy theorists saying she's a Satanist and she's here to indoctrinate our kids. You can't go anywhere. Too many people recognize you. It's not safe. So it's weird, you know? Everybody's on the payroll. You don't know who your friends are because there are a lot of people that want that proximity to celebrity. If it's you, do it. But be thinking about what you're going for. I say don't chase the charts. Consider it. Go look at this top 50 podcast. See what you're getting into. See what's hot. I've got them linked. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 195. Classified ads for you. These are things that will help you to grow your podcast, get more people to it, make money with your podcast. Podpage. You need a podcast website because you need to send people somewhere. Don't just tell them, yeah, get your podcast wherever. I'm there. Send them to yourpodcast.com. And when they go there, have a podcast page by Podpage. 25,000 podcasters have done this. You can automatically create a beautiful listener-friendly podcast site from your RSS feed. Podpage is the simplest way to create a podcast website. You can try it for free. I've got a special link for you, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Speaking of automation, let's talk about episode notes. You need something to put on that pod page. Cast Magic is a way to do that. 35,000 podcasters have used Cast Magic to automate episode notes, highlight clips, podcast summaries, blog posts, social media posts, and newsletters. You upload your podcast audio to Cast Magic, and it does the rest. It is an AI wizard, like a secretary or administrative assistant, they call it today. Whatever. It's a podcasting robot that does your bidding. It's called Cast Magic. I've got a link for you to try it for free at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Before I head out, I want to say something to you. Here we are. I'm 36 minutes in, but you can look at the timer and see that I've edited a lot of this out.
This is the Big Podcast Supercomputer with a courtesy time check. You are now 24 minutes and 18 seconds into this episode. Approximately 12 minutes of tape, roughly 1/4 of what was recorded, has been removed.
Regardless, let's say you're 20, 25 minutes into this episode. I don't take that for granted. I appreciate you spending time with me. Just like the technology that I use to make this podcast, I don't take it for granted that I am in this business full time and able to do this. I could not do this without you. I love working with podcasters. I love helping people spread their messages, bringing them and you into this group, helping them and you to spread a message and make the world a better place. If you want to work with me, I've talked about Big Podcast AMP. It's called the Audio Monetization Program. You can find more information about that at bigpodcast.com/amp. I'm going to work with you one-on-one to spread your message, build an audience, and make money with your podcast and your podcasting talents. Bigpodcast.com/amp is where to find out more information. You're on the fence. You're like, I'm not ready for that maybe. All right, cool. Well, let's get you subscribed to this podcast. That way you'll never miss an episode. This is how to do that. Bigpodcast.com/subscribe. That is the subscription page. It is very easy to subscribe. One click is all it takes. One click for an RSS feed. One click for Apple iPhone. One click for Android devices. That's it. Pick the one you want, RSS, iPhone, or Android. I'll get you immediately set up and subscribed to Build a Big Podcast. You'll never miss an episode, getting all the latest information about the podcasting industry and what people are doing to build an audience now. Thanks for listening to Build a Big Podcast. Go there now before you forget, bigpodcast.com/subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode.